Hi, I'm Josh.
And I'm Sam. Welcome back to Star Wars Deep Dive. Well, I got nothing. Let's begin.
Mottled brown, leathery skin, featherless with tiny, intense eyes buried beneath a broad, scarred beak. Diaz and Goa reached the retaining wall, and Greedo ducked down. The next thing Greedo heard was a third voice, rasping and cruel. Well, well, if it ain't Diaz Nataz and Warhog Goa. Where you been, boys? You should have known better than to stiffen old friends. Ease up, Gorm. You'll get your share. Fact is, Warhog and me are taking in this blacklisted spice inspector. The imps will pay us plenty, and we'll be.
Look, whoever you are. Oh, wait. Forgot about this. Look, whoever you are, I got my money. Well, I'm not. Don't have it right now. I'm planning to get it. I just need more time.
The imps will pay us plenty, and we'll be more than happy to cut you in on the deal. Hell we will, Diz. That was Goa's voice. There's two of us and one of Gorm. He can wait for the credits we owe. One of me is worth six of you cage cleaners. Blaster fire spanged and red bolts of energy shot over Greedo's head.
There could be 10 of you, and you would still fail.
He ducked lower, and the sounds of a fierce struggle came to his ears. Suddenly, Goa's big blaster rifle came flying over the wall and clattered on the pavement next to Greedo. As he impulsively reached out to touch the weapon, Greedo heard the one called Gorm directing the one called Diaz to hand over the body of the spice inspector. Give him up, and I'll let you live another day. Finding the courage to again peer over the wall, Greedo saw a most awesome figure, two heads higher than Diz Nataz, clothed in heavy-plated armor and full helmets. The eyes of the face mask were glowing red electronics. Must be a droid, Greedo thought. I've heard of renegade assassin droids taking up the bounty trade. IG-88 foreshadowing.
What would IG-88 be doing right now?
That's something we'll have to research later. Greedo suddenly had an idea. Taking the huge blaster rifle and trembling suckers, Greedo hefted the weapon as quietly as he could into firing position. He checked for a safety switch, found it, and armed the gun. Then, surreptitious as Uncle Nock waiting for a Menka cat, he hoisted the nose of the rifle over the edge of the retaining wall. It pointed straight at the back of Gorm. Greedo saw Gorm's eyes go to the rifle and then look away. Greedo squeezed the trigger. The weapon whistled and roared, and the bounty hunter called Gorm toppled forward with a grunt, a blackened blaster all in the center of its back. Wow, killed by Greedo. What a pathetic way to go.
You think Greedo was pathetic? What's even more pathetic is the guy killed by Greedo.
Exactly. As Greedo stood up, Goa emitted a maniacal cackling noise and lunged for the rifle. But Greedo swung the barrel at Goa's head. Whoa, kid, easy there. That's a hair trigger you're pinching. Diz snorted and laughed. Thanks, kid. You saved our skin. We're eternally in your debt. Now, if you'll just give my partner back his weapon, we'll be on our way. Greedo clambered carefully over the wall, keeping the blaster rifle trained on Goa. Moving closer to the prone figure of Gorm, he looked into the hole he had made in the big bounty hunter's back. Fused wires, exploded electronics. Is he a droid? Asked Greedo. You might say that, said Goa. Now, about the gun. How about we cut you in on the reward for this inspector? You've earned it. I've got a better idea, said Greedo. I think I can help you guys make a lot of money. The smuggler in the Wookiee. Spurch, Warhog, Goa? Why do they call him Warhog? Hanky Frem, Greedo's street friend, sat on the edge of a parking platform, short legs dangling over a miles-deep city canyon. Hanky was a Psionian skip, a near-human race with small, closely spaced eyes. Nice. That's from Dark Empire, by the way. Hair as brittle as glass and skin the color of Dianoga cheese. You can milk Dianogas? Anki pitched one bottle after another into the abyss. The distance from the spaceport's highest tower to the surface of the Nar Shaddaa moon was so great they never heard the bottles hit. But sometimes the bottles collided with a cab or freighter repulsing up the shaft. And that was fun. And what are you doing that for? Laura Greedo said with disdain. That's the kind of stupid game my kid brother plays. If Corellian port control catches you, we can be conscripted to work on an ore hauler. Yeah, you're right. I'm getting too old for this stuff. Oh well, there goes the last one. A hangar scow emerged into the shaft 7 levels down, and Frem's missile hit the scow pilot square in his protective helmet. The man looked up, screaming, and shook his fist. Yes.
All right.
Well, we can't stop now, and we'd have to re-record this whole thing.
No, we won't.
Okay. The distance from the spaceport's highest tower to the surface of the Nar Shaddaa moon was so great they never heard the bottle hit. Oh wait. When the scale lifted rapidly toward them, Greedo and Frem decided they'd been edge setting long enough and began walking fast toward Nynx's garage, one of their favorite hangouts. Okay, so tell me the deal, Greedo. These bounty hunters you met are going to make you rich? Yeah, I told them about the rebels running guns through level 88. The Empire pays a big bounty for that kind of information. Diz and Warhog said they'd cut me in on the take. Wow, will you share it with me? Greedo sounded superior. Yeah, I'll throw a few credits your way, Frem. First thing on my list, forgetting where I came from. That's an obscure reference. But most of it, I'm going to use to buy me my own ship. Nynx has got a cute little income corsair he'll let me have for 14,000.
So, Greedo, why do you want a ship? Well, Boba Fett has a ship, so why shouldn't I get one? Yeah, well, Boba Fett's ship costed a ton of credits. Yours will cost a ton of credits. Yeah, how's that a problem? Boba Fett is rich. You're broke.
Nice reference. Nynx has got a cute little income corsair he'll let me have for 14,000. All she needs is new power uplinks. That's nothing. We can steal the couplings. Links. Right. Right. I can steal the power couplings. Greedo gave his eager friend the Rhodian's version of a condescending look as they arrived at the secret door to Nynx's garage. Frem doesn't need to think any part of my new ship is going to belong to him. Shug Nynx's assistant was an ambidextrous Corellian hyperdrive mechanic named Not to be confused with Warp Null. Warp recognized the two youths on the entry monitor. Hey, Yankee! Greedo, got any hot therm pumps for me today? Sorry, Warp. Tomorrow we'll have something. Okay, see you tomorrow. Shug ain't around and I'm busy.
You're right, it's not Warp Null. It's his great descendant, Warp Dull.
Nice joke. I want to show Enki that little income corsair I'm going to buy. Okay, come on. But if any tools show up missing, I'm gonna know who to vaporize. Warp buzzed them into Nynx's garage and went back to work helping a smuggler overhaul the light drive on a beat-up YT-1300 freighter he'd won in a sabacc game. The cavernous repair shop was a confusion of dismembered ships and the greasy clutter of a lifetime. Parts everywhere, whole assemblies hanging from lifts and cradles, bright flashes of ion flow welding from technicians' droids working high on scaffolding surrounding a massive Kuat Starjammer IZX, fast freight hauler that seemed to take up half the garage. Greedo and Anki wandered through a maze of packing crates to where the Incom Corsair sat on her landing skids, gleaming like an Arcanian jewel. She looked almost new. There she is. There she is, said Greedo proudly. I'm going to call her the Menka Hunter. Nice, huh? Anki gulped. Only 14,000 credits for this? I don't believe it. She's probably going to substitute some. Shug's probably going to substitute some broken down clanker once he's got the money.
Actually, it's not pronounced clanker. It's pronounced clanka.
Yeah, that's also a good joke. You know, I really think they should tell us exactly how valuable an individual credit is, because whether 14,000 credits sounds like a lot of money or a little seems to vary from writer to writer. And I know I'm the only one who cares about that thing being consistent, but still. Not my pal Shug. He knows I'm going to be a bounty hunter. He knows a bounty hunter has to have a good ship. You're going to be a bounty hunter? Greedo puffed at his chest. Yeah, my friend Warhog Goa said he'd teach me the trade. He'd said some of the best bounty hunters are Rhodians. Name one.
Well, there's that one guy from the bar, and that's it.
Anki became an instant believer. Do you think he'd teach me to be a bounty hunter too? Greedo hooted. I don't think the Scuffs were ever known to do much in the way of bounty killing.
Oh, wait, I actually thought of one. Jacoli. He was known for never bringing anyone back alive.
Impressive.
He died in the box.
Granted, that's just because he used Greedo's model. Anki looked crestfallen. The Sionan homeworld was noted mostly for the master thieves it had produced. You see, this is kind of the problem with every species just having the one gimmick and every member of the species having to stick to it. Man, imagine if things worked that way in real life. It'd be hell. Nope. Come on, Anki. Let's look at the inside of my ship. But the Corsair's hatch was locked. Since Shug wasn't around, they'd have to ask Warb to unlock it. They made their way back through the parking crates and clutter and headed toward the YT-1300, where Warb and the smuggler were working. Well, the YT-1300 gets mentioned twice. I wonder if it'll be important later.
It does that.
They were almost to the freighter when Greedo spotted a pair of Deck 6 power couplings sitting on a workbench next to Shug's milling machine. Greedo knew right away they were Decks. Deck 6s were the best. Modog couplings used to be the best, but starship technology was advancing very rapidly, thanks to the Empire and its insatiable military needs. Frem spotted the decks too, and both you've stopped to admire the gleaming components. A pair of Deck 6s could cost 20,000 credits. That's how advanced they were. I'll bet Warb is planning to put these in that junk heap he's working on, said Greedo. He's going to have to mill the casings to fill the converter flanges on that old freighter. These are just what we need for your new Corsair, said Anki, figuring the expensive hardware. They'll drop right in. Yes. Greedo had already felt an impulse to steal the decks. They were brand new, and they were beyond beautiful, and you would never find their like-stripping hut caravels. A bounty hunter needs a fast ship. My ship will be the best. I will replace every part of my ship with the most advanced components I can buy or steal. No one will outrun the Manga Hunter. Greedo looked around casually and scanned the garage.
As a narrator, I would like to say, in fact, Greedo was completely wrong. As in, after buying the Manga Hunter, in fact, everyone outran the Manga Hunter.
Greedo looked around casually and scanned the garage. Warb and the smuggler were floating a heavy power cell up the gangway of the YT-1300. They disappeared through the hatch. No one was watching. Greedo slipped off his Rancor skin jacket. Okay, I know I'm not the first person to make that joke, but is Rancor skin really that common that even Greedo can afford to buy a jacket of it?
Greedo also has an invisibility cloak that was confiscated by Jabba.
active camouflage, and wrapped it around the fist-sized couplings. Come on, Anki, let's go. I gotta meet Goa in 20 minutes. Right, let's go. Suddenly, Greedo felt powerful, shaggy paws grip him around the waist and hoist him into the air. He dropped the skin jacket as he kicked and struggled, and the couplings clattered onto the floor. Lorn Takaya Skrek Gorilla Wuska. Put me down, you hairy heap. The Wookiee turned Greedo with his paws so he could look into the snouted green face. Chewbacca jump scare? Greedo saw bared teeth and angry eyes, and he wilted. Hanky Frem was already heading for the door. What's going on, Chewie? The tall Corellian smuggler appeared, with Warb at his side. The smuggler had his right hand on a holstered blaster. Ron. The Wookiee's groans were just terrifying noise to the youth, but the smuggler seemed to understand them perfectly. Stealing our Deck 6s, huh? Great. What kind of shop you guys running, Warp? Do you know what I had to pay for these decks? Sorry, hon. I told Shug I didn't trust these street kids, but he took a liking to the green one. You know the rules, Greedo. I'm going to have to tell Shug about this. If you know it's good for you, you'll get out of here and never come back. That is, if the Wookiee don't break your neck first. The big Wookiee was still... Oh, Chewie would never do that. Right? The big Wookiee was still holding the terrified Rodian a meter off the floor, as if waiting for a signal from his friend the smuggler. Wait a minute, said the smuggler. Don't hurt him, Chewie. I'm going to teach the little sneak a lesson. Where do you put those burnt-out dogs, Warb? The Wookiee lured Greedo to the floor, but kept his hairy paw on him, as Warb fished around in a big trash barrel next to the workbench. A second later, Warb emerged with two blackened and corroded Modog power couplings. He gave them to the smuggler, and the smuggler handed them to Greedo. Here, the kid wants power couplings, he can have these. I took him off the Millennium Falcon. They've got a real pedigree, kid, and all I want for him is this Rancor skin jacket. What do you say? Even trade? The smuggler grinned and the Wookiee squeezed Greedo's shoulders. Sjakta, I'll get you for this. Did he say what I think he said? Asked the smuggler. He said it's a deal, laughed Warb. Good, the kid knows a bargain when he sees one. The smuggler held out his hand for a handshake, but Greedo ignored him. Instead, he made a popping noise with his hand sucker and threw the burnt couplings on the floor. Then he turned and ran for the door. Around. Yeah, Chewie, I was probably a little rough on him. But you gotta set punks straight while they're still young. Otherwise, no telling where they'll end up. Do you think Han even remembered this is Greedo when he blasted him?
He did not.
Oh, good, because it would be...
It's actually
finished.
Yeah, I wasn't finished. I was going to say he did not. Why? Because basically the whole Cassian and Cyril thing from Andor. Greedo meets Han. Han has an experience with Greedo. Then when they meet again in the Mos Eisley Cantina, Han's all like, wait, who are you again?
Otherwise, no telling where they'll end up. Here, Warb, you want this jacket? It's a birthday present. Thanks, Han. How do you know today's my birthday? Hey. Chapter 6. The Teacher. Sports Warhawk Go was sitting by himself, counting a pile of credits in a corner of the Meltdown Cafe. He waved his arm when he saw Greedo come in. Hey, kid, over here! Greedo was still nursing his anger and resentment, but he tried to look like a seasoned spacer as he moved through the noisy gathering. He started to feel better when one grizzled old Twi'lek actually jumped out of his way. Hello, Spurch. Have a seat, kid. You want something to drink? Don't sit too close. Your onions don't smell right to the deal one. Greedo took a place opposite his new mentor. Go ordered up a bottle of Tatooine Sunburn for Greedo. Is Tatooine really famous enough to have a drink named after it? Alrighty then. That's a lot of money, Spurge. Greedo eyed the pile nervously. He hoped Nix would still sell him the Corsair after what happened. Call me Warhog, kid. I don't care for that other name. My mother thought it was cute because it means brave bug catcher in our language. Goa snorted it. He took a stack of chits off the pile in front of him. Here, kid, for you. Thanks for the tip about the rebels. It paid off big time. Jitun Rolyanski Kowen. Wow, that's great. Greedo picked up the bills and flipped through them. They were small denominations, far less than he had expected. Visions of piloting his own fast Corsair began to evaporate. Uh, 200 credits. Thanks, Warhog. What's the matter, kid? You look disappointed. Goa surveyed his new protege with a bright bird eye. I thought there would be more, I guess. Hey, kid, you want to be a bounty hunter, right? Didn't I say Rhodians make the best bounty hunters? Didn't I? Greedo nodded solemnly. I do want to be a bounty hunter, but a bounty hunter needs a ship. Now, you think I train bounty hunters for free? Do you? Drink your Tatooine Sunbird, kid. It's delicious. Scam. Obediently, Greedo picked up the bottle and swallowed the thick fluid. It tasted bitter. He felt embarrassed. Warhawk was right. I guess I never thought about that, he said. Right, it never cost your greedy little mind. Goa gets paid for teaching young punks how to hunt. Now look here. Goa reached into one of the many pouches strapped to his body and pulled out a much larger roll of credits. This is all yours, if you want it. 20,000. That's one third of what the imps paid for the intelligence on the rebels. Oh, it's not a scam. Yeah. Greedo's eyes watered, and a profound hunger rebelled in his guts as he stared at the amount of credit notes. Visions of the mega hunter started to reform. Gal leaned forward and fixed Greedo with his beady eyes. But if you take this money, that's it, you understand? I never want to see you again. You gotta make up your mind, kid. Do you want to learn the trade from an expert, or do you want a few nights on the town and the down payment on a hot rod you'll probably crash in a week? He would do that. But it's kind of weird that the term hot rod exists in Star Wars. Waragoa can make you the galaxy's second greatest bounty hunter, kid. Waragoa being the first. Did everyone just kind of forget that Boba Fett existed for a while? Greedo let Goa's words roll around inside his head for a minute, and they connected with his deepest desires. He wanted that Corsair more than anything. How he felt a deeper need to hunt, a need to be like his father. And the trade of bounty hunting was a way of making lots of money. A rich bounty hunter might own his own moon and lots of ships, sloops, cruisers, cutters, even warships. You know, for once, I'd like at least one Star Wars writer to tell a story about a bounty hunter who actually did that. Most of them tend to live a pretty, for lack of a better way of putting it, Spartan lifestyle. You'll really teach me the secrets? Asked Greedo, diffidently. Teach ya? I'll shove the stinking secrets down your stinking throats. We got a deal, kid? Believe me, I wouldn't do it for anybody. But you saved my life. You got me and Diz in on your first capture. And by the Cron Drift, you're a Rhodian. I tell you, Rhodians are born bounty hunters. Greedo felt waves of pride seep over him. Born bounty hunter. Rhodians are born bounty hunters.
No, they're not. Except for Jacoli.
Yes, I can feel it. I've always felt it. My father was a bounty hunter. I will be a bounty hunter. I am a bounty hunter.
Your grandfather was the worst bounty hunter in the galaxy, and your father was even worse than him.
Actually, with all the retcons and stuff, we actually know diddly squat about Greedo's dad and granddad. Yeah, maybe we'll find out someday, but I doubt any writers are particularly interested in telling that story. Hell, I doubt most fanfic writers are interested in telling that story. Deal, Warhog, Greedo hooted, and held out his hands. Goa looked at the suckered fingers, and a look of disgust crossed his face. Even the kid's hand smells funny. He carefully touched Greedo's hand with his own. Deal, he said. Come on, I'll buy another sunburn at the bar. Introduce you to some of the boys. Fool kid fell for it, thought Goa. Oh, never mind, scam after all. Man, I'm easily tricked too. As he pushed his way toward the bar, I get to keep his share, and all I gotta do is tell him a few secrets, and most likely he'll get himself aced in a month or two. Anyway, who knows? Maybe he will make a good bounty hunter, though I never saw a Rhodian good for anything except killing unarmed Ugnaughts. Wow, is everyone in the galaxy xenophobic? Well, I mean, it probably doesn't help that they all got their own gimmick that they all stick to for their entire species, regardless of who they are or where they're born. I mean, that would encourage stereotypes, so to speak.
Now I think about it, Greedo's great grandfather was actually a good bounty hunter, and he's a history teacher at the Bounty Hunters Guild.
Wait, that's actually in the bounty hunter. Never mind.
Well, actually, I don't know if they're related, but Weo is a good bounty hunter. Even though he's a history teacher at the Bounty Hunters Guild.
Herodian's names just sound like that, like Bloodlow. Anyways. Chapter 7 Vader. 15,000 kilometers out from the spaceport moon, in the shadow of the luminous hut planets, the starry void cracked open, and a mighty triangular warship emerged from hyperspace. Star Destroyer. As the massive vessel moved into stationary orbit over Nar Shaddaa, Imperial shock troopers answered the assembly klaxon, buckling on white body armor and pulling energized blaster rifles from charging safes. Oh man, that's a cool mental image. The troopers' boots resounded in their main launch bay as they ran to formation next to the two camouflaged Gamma assault shuttles. Gamma assault shuttles, that sounds familiar. That would carry them to the spaceport moon. High above, on the quarterdeck of the Star Destroyer Vengeance. Okay, that definitely sounds familiar. Well, it is kind of a generic name. The mission commander received final instructions from an imposing figure entirely encased in black armor. The figure's deep voice resonated through an electronic breath mask. I want prisoners, Captain. Dead rebels won't tell me where they're shipping those weapons. The menacing hiss of the grotesque breath mask underscored the threat implicit in the voice and the words. Yes, Lord Vader, it shall be as you request. The incident on Datar was unfortunate, sir. The rebels fought us to the last man. We had lost the element of surprise, Captain. Vice Admiral Slen paid with his life for that mistake. This time, there won't be a mistake. This time, the rebels won't know we're coming. Are the assault shuttles ready? Yes, Lord Vader. I've had them camouflaged as light freighters, sir. Our agents have obtained the necessary priority docking codes from port control. We're free to enter the Corellian sector of Nar Shaddaa at any hour of our choosing. Good. Leave at once, find the enemy enclave, and capture as many rebels as you can. I will follow the moment the situation is secure. Vades, why do you need the situation to be secure? You're you. One-man army and all that? Just saying. Very good, sir. Sir, the mission will launch immediately. When Rebel Spec Force Sentinel Spain Covis saw the two weather-beaten stock freighters drop past him down the flight shaft and enter level 88, he didn't think anything about it. From his post in a rented view room in Port Tower 1, Covis was supposed to alert his cadre commander of any unusual ship traffic entering the vicinity. It was a boring job. Nothing out of the ordinary happened. Covis's attention was operating at about 30%. Then it hit him. The sheathing's all wrong. The cargo doors are too small. Well, the cooling towers are in the wrong place. Nice. I've never seen freighters configured like those. Covis grabbed his comlink and yelled, Stardog 1, this is Dubak. Go ahead, Dubak. What's the problem? Watch your tail, Stardog. 2 Rancors in the house. Got it, Dubak. 20 rebel commandos had already taken up positions inside the warehouse, their surveillance center scanning the street, when the camouflage Gamma rumbled into view. In the rear of the cavernous building, other Spec Force infantry reloaded the hold of a massive Z-10 transport, clearing the warehouse of as much ordnance as they could before the firefight began. In the very center of the warehouse, behind a heavy blast shield, a C4 CZN ion field gun was rolled into position. The element of surprise the Imperials hoped for was gone. The firefight on level 88 was very fierce, and it happened very fast. Oh man, that would make a good video game level. Greedo's mother, Neela, heard a shuddering roar and ran to the window of the reconstructed ventilation flue where she and her sons lived, in the warren of structures crammed into one end of the warehouse district. At that moment, one of the Gamma assault shuttles transformed into flaming vapor, becoming a spear of light and energy that expanded in a flash, igniting both sides of the street. The green fireball seared Neela's large eyes, and she turned and bolted screaming into the back of her apartment. The other Gammas unleashed twin turbos, and the front of the rebel warehouse shattered and split. The shuttle crew ramps came down. Imperial shock troopers emerged blasting. Another round from the C4 ion gun in the second gamma was history. A rain of blaster shots were exchanged. 60 shock troops went down, and the fight was over. The rest surrendered. Wait. 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 The Imperials surrendered? Just a quick thing. Greedo was hanging around with Gohan and Diaz and a bunch of other bounty hunters on level 92. The hunters had news that a wanted list had been released by a top Hut gang lord. The Hut was assigning collection jobs on a first-come basis, complete with signed contracts. Suddenly, emergency sirens began to blare, and Greedo saw Corellian firefighting scouts plunging down the flight shafts, red strobes flashing. Looks like the imps got our message, said Warhog, giving Greedo a knowing wink. Greedo tried to sound nonchalant. Yep, maybe so. Could be just another fire started by the Gloom Dwellers. Gloom Dwellers. We could start a drinking game of the stuff that sounds familiar. Then smoke began to pour up the shaft, and Greedo started to worry.
I've heard of Gloom Walkers, but never Gloom Dwellers.
Then smoke began to pour up the shaft, and Greedo started to worry. It hadn't occurred to Greedo until after he told Go and Diz about the rebel gunrunners that there might be danger for his people. Hey, you think when Greedo gets to the afterlife, his family members are gonna slap him around a bit for being such an idiot? I'd be tempted to if I were them. The Rhodian refugees lived and worked on level 88. They'd be in the path of any attack by Imperial stormtroopers. Guess I'll see you later, Warhog. You too, Diz. Got some business to take care of. Go raised an eyebrow. Sure, kid. Me and Diz are most likely jumping to Tatooine tonight, so if I don't see you, good luck. Tatooine, the Hut contracts. Greedo walked away feeling angry and betrayed that Go hadn't invited him to go with them. So far, Go had given him very little training, and he took my share of the reward. Greedo started to turn back, to beg Warhog and Diz to take him to Tatooine. Then his mother's screaming face suddenly flooded his mind. Instead of turning back, Greedo began to run for the nearest repulsor lift. Greedo stepped into the lift and hit the stud marked 88. The lift dropped like a stone, stopping smoothly a few seconds later at level 88. An alarm sounded and the lift door refused to open. Automatic sensors had knocked out the lift at this level.
Oh, I forgot to mention, when Jabba the Hutt confiscated Greedo's invisibility cloak, that was after Jabba the Hutt confiscated Greedo's pants.
Duly noted. The lift dropped like a stone, suddenly stopping smoothly a few seconds later at level 88. An alarm sounded, and the lift door refused to open. Automatic sensors had locked out the lift at this level. Looking through the transparent door, Greedo saw why. The street was a mass of smoke and flame. The Corellian firefighting scouts were working the blaze with chemical sprays and making rapid headway. Greedo tried to peer through the smoke to see if his family's dwelling complex was on fire. The Rhodians lived back near the refuse core. Greedo couldn't see that far, but he guessed everything was okay. Only the rebel warehouse and the buildings across the street were burning. Greedo relaxed and began to enjoy the scene before him. He recognized rebels helping the firefighters, and he began to wonder exactly what had happened here. The only stormtroopers visible were lying on their backs, helmets shattered. Good on the rebels for doing that. The key to any successful rebellion is getting the people on your side, and it's always nice to do some volunteer work for PR purposes. Just then, Greedo heard the sound of rending metal, and then he saw the firefighters all turn towards the flight shaft, which was out of his line of vision. The firefighters' faces changed to fear, and a second later a massive black war machine hovered into view, spewing laser from 10 different points on its convoluted surface. The machine was a monstrous engine of death, shaped like a crab with ripping claws left and right, a phalanx of blast weapons fore and aft, and a command cockpit secured behind heavy shieldings in the center about where a craft's mouth would be. What do you think this thing is?
I would say Vader, but I don't know.
It's clearly a vehicle, so it can't be Vader. It floated on repulsor energy. It moved very swiftly, and it killed everything in its path. Greedo pounded on. Greedo pounded on the lift door, and it still wouldn't open. Part of him was glad it wouldn't open. Part of him wanted to leave. That part of him punched the button for level 92. My family will be okay. Only the rebels are going to die. As the lift rose away from the carnage, Greedo got a last glimpse of the death engine as it spewed a thick stream of white-hot energy into the rebel warehouse. Then he was moving between levels and his vision was blocked. A moment later, the whole sector shook as if it had been hit by an asteroid. Greedo stumbled out onto the level 92 thoroughfare and promptly fell on his face. The street heaved and shook, and a terrifying rumble filled the air. People ran or grabbed onto vehicles as they careened past, heading for the flight shaft. As he dragged himself to his feet, Greedo saw the bounty hunters moving together toward the reserved parking platform where they had all stashed their ships. He saw Diz and Taz, but he couldn't make out Warhog Goa. A gloved hand grabbed Greedo's shoulder. He looked up into the broad-beaked face of his friend. If you know what's good for you, kid, you'll come with me and Diz. The imps are in a bad mood about something. I think the rebels gave them more of a fight than they expected. My folks. I can't leave my family. My people. People. Don't worry about the family, kid. If you're going to be a bounty hunter, you're going to have to kiss off the family sooner or later. Now's as good a time as any. Besides, they'll probably be okay. No, they won't. Warhog Goa gave Greedo a questioning look and then walked away, following Diz toward their ship. Greedo stood and watched Warhog go, trying to make up his mind, trying to decide what he really wanted. He wanted to be a bounty hunter. The sleek cruiser Nova Viper lifted with the swarm of bounty hunter craft that headed out of port, lining up for jump clearances. No clearances came. Port control was preoccupied. So the ships jumped anyway. The last thing Goa and Diz and Greedo saw was the collapse of an entire quarter of the Corellian sector. 4 upon 4, with a magnificent flash and rumble and roar. Wheeze, must have took out 20 levels, shouted Diz. A lot of good people just died, Goa. And were alive. Right, Greedo? Greedo didn't answer. He just stared at the swelling conflagration, the succession of fireballs, the billowing black clouds. The Empire sucks. The Navicom clicked in for Tatooine. They jumped. Chapter 8. Mos Eisley. A massive armor-plated figure stood in the entrance of the dim and noisy cantina, surveying the motley crowd with glowing red electronic eyes. Hey, ain't that Gorm the Dissolver? What's he doing here? I thought we killed him. Sure, my buddy Greedo decimated his motivator, but there's biocomponents from 6 different aliens in Gorm. The only way to kill him is to vaporize the whole assembly. Why isn't he after revenge? Oh wait, they're about to explain that. I mean, does this make him being defeated by Greedo at least slightly less pathetic?
Yeah.
Okay then. But there's biocomponents from 6 different aliens in Gorm. The only way to kill him is to vaporize the whole assembly. Diz Nataz groaned. Why didn't you tell me that, Go? I would have finished him. Now we gotta worry about him hitting us for the credits we owe him. Take it easy, Diz. Giotto Cast just told me Jabba gave Gorm the sweetest hits on the wanted list. 50,000 credits to bring in Zardra. You really want to talk about Giotto Cast, don't you?
I was gonna say, yeah, Jodo Cast. The faker Boba Fett. Let's see. Yeah. Also, he's a shadow of Boba Fett's awesomeness.
Alright. Gave Gorm the sweetest hit on the wanted list. 50,000 credits to bring in Zardra. You're kidding. Zardra's a bounty hunter. What's Jabba got against her? Nuts. I need to look up all of these names. I swear I've read something with Zardra in it. Maybe a comic? The 3 were sitting in the smoky shadows of the Mos Eisley Cantina. sipping green peak at thundercloud, and watching the bounty hunters drift in from around the galaxy. Weakways, Aqualish, Arcona, Defels, Calronians, Venebes, Quillheads, Bomedons, Alpharidians, and the inevitable Ganks. Greedo even saw a couple of Rhodians. Believe it or not, I only know some of those names. They moved in his direction, but he didn't return the greeting. He had learned long ago that unknown Rhodians could be dangerous. Dangerous. A cocky Corellian and a big Wookiee entered and stood on the lobby steps for a moment, surveying the crowd. Greedo recognized the smugglers he'd come up against in Nix's repair barn on Nar Shaddaa. He felt hatred roll up inside him at the sight of the two. Then the Corellian turned and left the cantina, and the Wookiee followed him. Disneytas snorted. Right, Solo. You're in the wrong place, buddy. Han Solo? Is he here? Warhog Goa swung around in his chair and looked around the room. Yeah, Solo and his Wookiee pal Chewbacca came in and looked around and left. Solo's on Jabba's list, you know. If that was him, I'd make like a space frog and hop up to some other galaxy. I mean, he did do that once. Remember the Indiana Jones crossover comic?
Oh, yeah.
Diz took a deep swallow of Thundercloud. Now, what's this about Zardra? What did she ever do to be worth 50 to old Jabba? Greedo turned his back to his two companions and hoisted his glass. For a bone-dive planet, Tatooine sure brewed some of the best beverages in the galaxy. Expensive, but very tasty. Well, that's one way to justify why so many people are in the Mos Eisley Cantina. Personally, I think it would be funnier if the drinks were actually terrible. But, you know, only bar in town and only place you can go. But I understand why the author went in a different direction. Annie drank, then wiped his mouth with his gloved hands. Zardra and Jodo Kast were on a hunt in the Stennis system, looking for a pair of spice jackers named the Thig brothers. The Thigs were armed to the gills with Imperial blasters they'd stole from a military supply depot. Jodo says to Zardra, why don't we split up? And I'll put the word around the ports that I'm following the Thigs, and you stay out of sight. The Thigs will be itching for a fight. I know those guys.
I was going to say, maybe there's more cantinas besides the Mos Eisley Cantina, and I met with tumbleweeds.
That's a good joke. You know, we could actually make a list sometimes. Like, I'm sure the wiki has information to offer. They'll come looking for me, and I'll stage a little face-off, and you sting him from the shadows. Just stun him, you know. We'll take him along. Jodo knew he could count on Zardra. She's as fearless as they come, and a crack shot with the stun laser. Yeah, I've seen her in action. The best. So then what happens?
Here's an important rule from the Bounty Hunter's Guide. Teamwork between two bounty hunters helps you reel in the big bounties. And you can share.
All the time, Greedo wasn't saying anything. He was savoring Diz's remark that Solo was on Jabba's list. Half-formed images of revenge flickered through his mind. He was content to sit and listen to his friends and watch the crowd of bounty hunters. I'm one of them, he thought. I'm a bounty hunter. Spurts is going to take me to meet Jabba. Jabba needs good hunters right now, lots of them. Jabba needs me. So yeah, this is where we get to the part where all of this is basically completely incompatible with the Clone Wars, because, like, it was already hard enough to justify the deleted scene with Greedo in the Phantom Menace being canon, but Greedo's Clone Wars backstory completely incompatible with this. To anyone who cares about that, of course. Maybe you don't. Just then, Gorm the Dissolver stood up at the table and scanned the room with his electronic red eyes. Greedo ducked and shielded his face with his hand, squinting between two suckered fingers. He watched the big bounty hunter turn and swagger toward the lobby. There goes Gorm, said Greedo, alerting his friends. Oh, yeah, good riddance, I say. He'll be on his way to find Zarda. Ardra, I hope she melts into slag. Maybe we ought to warn her, Warhog. Don't worry, she knows. She's got a lot of friends in our line of work. And I'll wager a good crate steak Joda's already told her. You're probably right. So, what's the rest of the story? Why is Jabba the Hutt paying Gorm 50,000 to kill Zardra? Easy. She killed a Hutt, that's why. When the Thig brothers came looking for Jodo, they found him waiting in the Red Shadow. That's a bistro on Taboon, a slag heap of a planet where nobody but Nessies would ever live. Nessies was... Is that a Tales of the Jedi reference?
That name does sound familiar.
Trouble was, a Hutt named Magi was passing through on his way to cut a deal with old Bulbul, another Hutt who practically owns the Stennis system. Okay, the Stennis system, now I know it's definitely a Tales of the Jedi reference. Oh, I get it. Magi gets caught in the crossfire? Diz made a yawning noise under his blast mask. Worse, Magi is carried into the bistro on a palanquin, you see, by these 5 strong Wookiees. The excitement starts, the Thigs are shooting everything that moves. 2 weak ways get hit. They drop the palanquin and the worm rolls off, right on top of Zardra. Poor Zardra. Poor Magi. Zardra's wearing full armor, but she's still getting crushed. And the slime and stench is about to suffocate her, so she pulls a Gauge 6 Imperial detonator out of her pocket and pops it into the Hutt's mouth. I'm sure a lot of Star Wars characters fantasized about doing that, or at least they would if I was writing this. Goa paused for effect, letting his listeners form an image for what happened next. Greedo made a soft hooting noise. Diz emitted a choking sound. Goa picked up Thundercloud and swallowed. It took him a month to clean up the mess, boys. Picking pieces of Bochaba out of their soup. Goa wagged more Thundercloud, and his foam-covered beak made a satisfying clacking noise. Great, good story, Warhog, said Diz, laughing. So, when's our turn to meet with Jabba? Goa looked at his chronometer. Actually, we're late, he said. Let's get moving. Chapter 9. Jabba. Jabba the Hutt, gangster preeminent, was receiving petitioners at his Mos Eisley townhouse, a short walk from the cantina. Oh yeah, I think that's on one of the official maps of the town. Complete locations, right? A violent windstorm brewed in the surrounding desert, whipping clouds of grit over Mos Eisley. The narrow streets of the spaceport were dust-choked and dim. The 3 bounty hunters pulled protective cloaks across their faces as they hurried to their audience with the notorious Hutt. Don't know how they can keep droids functioning on in a place like this, said Diz. My visor's already got 3 centimeters of sand under it. Moisture farmers use up a lot of droids, said Gohan. Sand seizes joints and clogs cooling fins, and the tronics burn out. Half the population thrives off the junk that's the main product of this hot and dusty planet. And now the Jawas have been justified. You see how you can explain everything? Well, explain away everything. 2 scout Gamorrean tuskers blocked the heavy iron grip that protected the courtyard of Jabba's townhouse. The big-legged brutes made threatening grunts and brandished battle axes as the bounty hunters appeared out of the darkening streets. But Warhog Goa didn't hesitate, roaring out the password he'd been given earlier. The Gamorreans immediately stepped back. The spear-tip gate rose with the grinding of hidden gears, and Goa sauntered under the menacing points with a cocksure gait. Diz and Greedo held back, waiting to see what happened to their friends. Goa turned and cackled. What's the matter, Diz? You afraid of old Jabba? He's the hunter's friend. Come on, Greedo. I'll show you how to get rich. Suddenly, 4 vicious-looking Nikto emerged from the shadows of the courtyard and leveled blaster prods at Goa. Nudja! Kichawa Joto! One of them shouted. What do you know? We're just in time. Jabba's ready to see us. Goa ignored the prods and strode fearlessly toward the glowing aperture of Jabba's domicile. The Nikto lowered their weapons and snarled something unintelligible. Diz and Greedo followed, cautiously. The raucous babble of the galactic riffraff that crowded Jabba's audience chamber was deafening. Alien and human, 100 different species, faces contorted with greed and depravity, wearing a motley assortment of spacers' costumes and military gear. Club Shido Club, or as they called it back in the day, where they sell new action figures. All eyes turned to the 3 newcomers. Greedo surveyed the grotesque gathering and wondered. It seemed as if he recognized only a few species from his years on Nar Shaddaa. Are these all bounty hunters? He shouted to Goa. Nah, maybe about half of them. The rest are just the slimy bottom feeders that enjoy being around Jabba's stench and corruption. Gil wasn't just kidding. Greedo noticed a rancid odor permeated the room.
I'm betting they're here. The greatest bounty hunter team ever. Bosk and Pruneface.
Of course, of course. Gil wasn't just kidding. Greedo noticed a rancid odor permeated the room, and in a few seconds he guessed the source. The Great Worm himself, Jabba the Hutt, ensconced on a platform to the right, puffing on a convoluted water pipe. Greedo had seen many huts in the streets of Nar Shaddaa, but he had never been in a close space with one. His stomach churned and twisted at the sight and smell of the miasmic mass of the great gangster, fawned over by unctuous Twi'leks and squidheads and Rhodians. Wow, calling the Quarren slurs already? Eddie, shame on you, Greedo. Next you'll be slut-shaming the slaves. Yes, the two Rhodians they'd seen in the cantina were before the great Jabba, bowing slavishly, like supplicants in the palace of a Palladian prince. Palladian? A silver prodigal droid was translating their groveling remarks for malodorous Jabba. Maybe they're bending over to throw up, said Diz, reading Greedo's thoughts. How would a Rhodian know the difference, said Goa. The green goons stink almost as bad as Jabba. Greedo gave Goa a startled look. Why did he say that? Am I just a green goon to him? He decided Goa was trying to make a true joke. Oh man, Greedo's got the opposite of social anxiety. He thinks everyone secretly doesn't hate him. As the two Rhodians faded back into the crowd, Major Domo Bib Fortuna cast a suspicious eye toward the new visitors. With an almost imperceptible nod, he signaled for Goa, Diaz, and Greedo to step forward. The rabble quieted as the three hunters moved into position in front of the Great Worm. Everyone wanted to see if a death sentence was about to be executed. When it became apparent that these were just another team of rapacious bounty hunters, the Hubba presumed. Vifa Kariba Uta Chuba Jabba, began Goa, speaking perfect Huttese. He knew that Jabba himself spoke many languages fluently and used his prodigal droid for the several million other forms of communication. But he wished to honor the crime lord in every way possible. Moja Jipo Chakula Cha Asubuhi, rumbled the Hutts, apparently pleased to be treated with respect by scum. What did he say? Said Diz. What did you say? I told him he's the most disgusting pile of swamp sludge in the galaxy. He thanked me for groveling before his bloated, slimy, putrid body. Really? Whispered Greedo. You said that? Go's pulling your snout, kid. We'd be rancor bait if he said any of that stuff. Go had turned his full attention to the hut, hoping Jabba hadn't heard the whispered exchange. If he had heard it, Jabba gave no sign. He proceeded to laugh quite jovially and popped a squirming sand maggot into his mouth. What, are Clatoinian patty frogs too good for you now, Jabba? Greedo almost retched at the sight of the swollen tongue dripping with slaver. At this distance, of not more than 1.5 meters, the malignant smell of Jabba's breath was overpowering. The Hutt's lardaceous body seemed to periodically release a greasy discharge, sending fresh waves of rotten stench to Greedo's sensitive nostrils. Nisubo Greedo Pombo Gek Fultra Bata Wonga. Goa put one hand on Greedo's shoulder as he introduced his protege to the illustrious gangster. Greedo bowed nervously as the huge eyes turned on him and reduced him to space dust. Jabba and Goa exchanged a few more phrases, and then Jabba proceeded to deliver a long soliloquy that ended with the words, Qua bonuta du dead beta Han Solo. Seriously? Dead beta? That tease is so silly sometimes.
Try something else besides just dead beta for deadbeat in Huttese.
Indeed. Goa turned to Greedo and Diz. The worm has seen fit to offer us the opportunity of hunting one of his most notorious debtors, that pirate Han Solo. Solo claims he lost a lot of spice when he got boarded by imps, but Jabba thinks Solo sold the spice and kept the money. This is a collection job. Jabba wants that money. I ain't messing with Solo, said Diz. He's got too many ways of getting revenge, even after he's dead. How? I can handle him, said Greedo. He's just a small-time Corellian spice runner who thinks he's a big stuff. He stole a Rancor skin jacket off me. I'll take Solo. Warago looked at Greedo for a moment and then slapped him on the back. Okay, kid, that's what I like to hear. This'll be a good assignment to cut your baby teeth on, because Solo's on Tatooine. We saw him today in the cantina, remember? I'll even be able to give you some backup. If he's got the money on him, you'll get it easy. And Diaz snorted. Great, you helped the kid. I don't want nothing to deal with it. Now, what about us? You gonna set up a couple of deals for us, or are you gonna waste the whole trip on the kid? Right, I got that covered. Go exchanged a few more words with Jabba, and then Fortuna handed the bounty hunters 3 scrolls, the official contracts assigning them exclusive hunting rights for the period of 2 Tatooine months. The Solo scroll was for a much shorter period, due to the fact that Jabba was anxious to clean up a debt that had remained uncollected far too long. How long exactly? On a signal from Fortuna, the 3 bounty hunters bared ceremoniously and moved back to make room for the next team of job applicants. An unsavory human named Dace Bonearm and his IG model assassin droid. Those are TTRPG characters if I've ever heard of them.
Dace Bonar created a bunch of IG assassin droids that are completely loyal and won't turn on their creators. What could go wrong?
Greedo found himself separated from Goa and Diaz as they were swallowed up in the crowded audience chamber. Greedo made his way to an open spot in a corner next to the bar. Without being asked, the Aqualish bartender slid a brimming glass his way. Greedo felt proud of himself as he leaned back against the wall and sipped the syrupy Tatooine sunburn. Across the room, he could see Diaz standing next to a hunter named Dengar that Greedo remembered from Nar Shaddaa. They were both examining their scrolls and comparing notes. Warog Goa was deep in conversation with one of the Rhodians. Greedo felt a twinge of jealousy seeing his mentor talking to another Rhodian bounty hunter. I'm a bounty hunter, he thought. I'm going to stalk my prey and I'm going to collect the reward and I'm going to start building a rep. I'm going to be the toughest bounty hunter that ever was. Yes. I wonder what that Rhodian and Goa are talking about. He saw Goa look toward him and then the Rhodian's eyes met his and Greedo realized they were talking about him.
Oh, wait.
Sorry.
Oh, wait, I just thought about this. Greedo says, I'm a bounty hunter. I'm going to be the best bounty hunter that ever was. Cue Pokemon theme song music.
I knew you were going to make that joke. At first, he felt uneasy being noticed by the strange Rhodian. Then Goa waved and the Rhodian held up his hand, suckers out, in a gesture of brotherhood. Greedo beamed with pride. Okay, they're talking about me. Greedo the bounty hunter. Chapter 10. Solo. Roarn! The Wookiee slammed a shaggy fist down on the Millennium Falcon's shield generator and pushed back his welding mask. Take it easy, Chewie. I want to get off this dirtball as much as you do, but without deflectors, we're easy game for the Spice Jackers and Nosy Amps. Roarn? Roarn? Right. Jabba's throwing the biggest bounty hunting bash in the sector, and you just know our names are getting bandied around over dessert. That's another reason to blow this joint. But like I say, if the ship had been under cover during the sandstorm, we wouldn't be in this mess. Han Solo finished vacuuming sand out of the alluvial dampers and wiped his brow on his sleeve. Vacuums exist in Star Wars?
Yep.
Why does a free and unfettered guy like me always end up on wasted planets like this when he could be basking in the oceanside breezes of any gambling resort in the universe? Because I'm not very good at sabacc, he thought. Lucky sometimes, yeah, but not that lucky. Unlike some people I know, I gotta work for a living. Ooh, shade at Lando and he's not even here. Chewbacca made a soft warning growl when Solo raised his head and looked around. 2 bulbous faceted eyes were staring at him out of spiny green balls of flesh. The leather-garbed humanoid body beneath the head held a blaster in multi-suckled fingers. Han Solo? The voice from the long green snout spoke through an electronic translator. Funny, he didn't need that in the movie. Who wants to know? Han knew who wanted to know. A Rhodian with a blaster is always a bounty hunter. Or a bill collector. You know, when you stop and think about it, there really isn't that much difference. Greedo. I work for Jabba the Hutt. Greedo! Oh yeah, I remember you, the kid who tried to steal my power couplings. Wow, he does remember. Okay, good for you. So now you're working for Jabba. By the way, I understand Rhodian, so you can turn off the squawk box. Oh, that's why you didn't use it in the movie. Speaking too soon. Han jumped down from the scaffolding as casually as he could and picked up a rag to wipe his hands. Alright, I think that's a good place to stop for tonight. Okay, any last thoughts?
Well, I do basically, well, tune in next time for bonus content where we discuss Lego Star Wars: The Complete Saga.